caught my wife cheating on me, and I know exactly when it started. My life took a dramatic turn recently, and I'm still reeling from it. I'm a 44-year-old man, and my soon-to-be ex-wife, who I'll call Jane, is 39. We've been married for 11 years without children. Our journey started 2 years ago when a health scare, a risk of diabetes, gout, and hypertension, prompted us to overhaul our lifestyles. This health scare was a wake-up call for us both. We gradually adopted healthier habits, resulting in significant weight loss. I slimmed down from 117 g to 85 g, and Jane from 83 to 65 g. We felt rejuvenated and avoided the looming health issues. Our transformation brought us to a local gym, where we became regulars. It's there that our story takes a dark turn. There was a coach at the gym, let's call him Baldy, who had a habit of ogling women. I couldn't help but notice that Jane began enjoying the attention she received from men at the gym, including Baldy. One particular incident at the gym stands out. While we were using the elliptical machines, Baldy decided to show off by doing crossovers shirtless right in front of us. I turned to Jane, expecting her to share my disbelief, only to find her staring at him, seemingly captivated. I remember feeling a sense of betrayal then, a prelude to what was yet to come. Things escalated quickly after that. One day, while Jane was doing squats, Baldy approached her under the guise of helping, his hands on her waist. That was the last straw for me. I intervened, asking him to back off, much to Jane's annoyance. We left the gym that day with tension hanging between us, a silent promise of a confrontation waiting at home. Little did I know, this was just the beginning of a revelation that would shake the foundation of our marriage. The drama that unfolded at home after the gym incident was intense. Jane accused me of being immature and jealous. Despite my concerns about Baldy's intentions, she insisted she would never cheat and justified his touch as not wanting to appear rude. We argued for hours before agreeing to change gyms, but the decision left Jane resentful, believing I didn't trust her. As time passed, a new opportunity arose at my work, but it required afternoon shifts, meaning Jane and I would visit the gym at different times. This change marked the beginning of a deeper divide between us. Jane's resentment grew, our communication dwindled, and she became increasingly distant. In my desperation to save our marriage, I even started therapy, thinking the problem was my trust issues. However, despite my efforts, Jane's behavior remained unchanged. Our intimacy faded, and she seemed constantly disengaged. I started to suspect something was wrong and snooped on her phone and car, but found nothing. Her phone's map history showed a regular pattern: house, work, gym, and back. Any attempt to discuss our issues was met with dismissive comments about her going through a 40s phase. The revelation came unexpectedly through our cheerful security guard, Mr. He mentioned a masseur visiting Jane who turned out to be none other than Baldy. Shocked, I decided to investigate. Using a coworker's car, I followed Jane to the mall, where she met Baldy. Their affectionate behavior shattered my world. They seemed like a couple, full of laughter, kisses, and hugs. I attempted to follow them discreetly, but was stopped by a security guard. I realized then why her trips to this place never appeared on her phone's map history. She left her phone in the car. Devastated, I confided in my father, who advised me to gather evidence and put me in touch with a divorce lawyer. Jane, unaware of my knowledge, continued to act as if everything was normal. I pretended to be sick to avoid confrontation and spent a sleepless night overhearing her giggling, presumably messaging Baldy. The next morning, while Jane showered, I synced her phone with my laptop. I discovered a chat under a female coworker's name with a dumbbell as the profile picture, clearly a disguise for Baldy. The conversations were coded and mostly deleted, but one message stood out: "Boss is in his office." He's clueless, likely referring to me. I realized they were cleverly using work terminology as a cover. I contacted the recommended lawyer and shared my findings. However, he informed me that the evidence from the laptop was inconsequential, as the conversations were too ambiguous and didn't directly link to Baldy. He suggested capturing them together at the mall, but warned against invading a residential area they frequented, as it could legally backfire on me. In my desperation for evidence, I considered installing hidden cameras at home, but realized Baldy seldom came to our house, and there was a risk of Jane discovering them. Then it hit me. If I wasn't around, she might let her guard down. I texted Jane, feigning illness and stating I'd stay with my parents. She seemed almost relieved, promptly agreeing and packing a suitcase for me. As I left, I couldn't help but notice her glancing at her watch, eager for me to leave. Once outside, I realized why she had been so eager to walk me to my car. Baldy was likely already inside, waiting. I returned home silently, catching them in the act. I recorded a few seconds of their shocked faces as evidence. Baldy, trying to assert dominance, approached me aggressively, but I quickly incapacitated him and threw him out, clothes following. My dad, brother, and Mr. P arrived just in time to see him leave. Inside, Jane was trembling on the bed. I assured her I wouldn't harm her and asked her to get dressed. I recorded our conversation in the living room. Her silence was deafening as I questioned her about the affair. Her inability to look at me, to speak, her tears, it all spoke volumes. When I announced the impending divorce and instructed her to get a lawyer, she naively suggested we could fix things. I made it clear that our marriage ended the moment she chose Baldy over me. I instructed her to tell her sister the truth, or I would show her the video. Watching her pack her things was agonizing. The woman I loved and shared my life with for over a decade was no longer the person I knew. I broke down in the spare room, mourning the loss of the life we had built together. Later, my dad informed me that Baldy had considered pressing charges, but backed down when confronted with the reality of his trespassing. My brother, ever the curious one, had tried eavesdropping but was promptly removed by my dad. The reality of my marriage's end hit me hard, leaving me to grapple with the betrayal and the painful task of rebuilding my life from the ruins. In the wake of the tumultuous events, I found myself battling with sleeplessness. The morning after the confrontation brought a barrage of apologetic messages from Jane on my phone, but I chose to block her. My sister-in-law also reached out, seemingly unaware of the true reasons behind our marital strife. I felt it wasn't my place to enlighten her. About a week after the incident, the inevitable next step loomed. Jane was to be served with the divorce papers. Update on progress and healing. Since sharing my story, I've been overwhelmed by the support from various online communities, which has been a comforting beacon in these dark times. While English isn't my native tongue, the understanding and patience of everyone have been heartwarming. The day following the confrontation, I learned that our security guard, Mr. P, had intentionally tipped me off about Baldy's clandestine visits. This revelation brought a mixture of gratitude and sadness. My brother assisted in changing the locks to my house, symbolizing both a literal and metaphorical closing of a chapter in my life. My lawyer initiated the divorce proceedings, recommending that I keep the video evidence private for the time being. 2 days after the confrontation, my sister-in-law saw the video, confirming her suspicions about the affair. Despite the clarity this brought, the emotional turmoil continued to weigh heavily on me, manifesting in moments of profound grief and solitude. The days that followed were a mix of introspection and necessary actions. Visits to my parents provided a much-needed emotional anchor. Simultaneously, the reality of the legal proceedings began to take shape. Jane, finding herself locked out of our home and receiving my attorney's contact from Mr. P, seemed to be grappling with the consequences of her actions. Baldy's presence in the condo complex continued, but it appeared that he and Jane were not in direct contact. Heeding the advice of many online supporters, I found solace in physical exercise, turning to the gym as a refuge for clearing my mind. Discussions with my lawyer regarding assets reaffirmed the protection afforded by the prenuptial agreement. We agreed on an approach that would see our remaining assets divided and resolve to forego alimony, favoring a cleaner and less contentious separation. The spread of gossip within my condo complex about my situation was inevitable, yet it became a peripheral concern. Establishing a routine that included gym sessions and work commitments provided a semblance of normalcy and distraction from the ongoing emotional upheaval. Nearly a week after the confrontation, I found myself deeply immersed in the Reddit community. The act of sharing my story, coupled with reading about others' experiences, offered a new perspective and a degree of solace. The overwhelming response to my posts not only provided a sense of community, but also valuable insights and suggestions for moving forward. Taking heed of this advice, I began to contemplate the future of my living situation. The house, once a symbol of marital bliss, now felt irrevocably tainted by memories of betrayal. Considering options like selling or renting became a priority as I yearned for a fresh start, free from the shadows of the past. In the meantime, I continued to spend valuable time with my family, finding in their company a source of strength and unconditional support. Jane's and Baldy's sporadic appearances at the condo served as stark reminders of the past, but I remained steadfast in my decision to avoid any engagement or information about them. My focus shifted to rebuilding and redefining my life, one step at a time, bolstered by the unwavering support of my family, friends, and newfound online community. This painful journey, though fraught with challenges, has set me on a path toward healing and rediscovery, with a renewed sense of hope for a brighter future. In the latest update, 11 days after the initial confrontation, I visited my old gym, unsure if I would encounter Baldy, the gym coach with whom my wife had the affair. He wasn't there, so I spoke with Frank, the gym owner. During our conversation, Frank revealed some startling information about Baldy's intentions with my wife Jane. Frank and another coach, Harry, informed me that Baldy was deeply infatuated with Jane and had become more professional at work, with fewer complaints from female members. However, the most shocking revelation was that Baldy was allegedly planning to trap Jane into marriage by getting her pregnant. I couldn't help but laugh at the irony of the situation. Frank and Harry were initially confused by my reaction, but once they understood my connection to the situation, they were sympathetic. We discussed the implications for Baldy's career. It became clear that his actions would likely lead to his dismissal and loss of his coaching license, although he could potentially apply for a license with another association after some time. I also learned from Frank that Baldy might be living illegally in a house owned by Frank's late father. Frank intended to investigate this further. As I was leaving the gym, Harry approached me, expressing his sympathy and asking for more details about the situation. I shared some information, but the conversation was interrupted when Baldy arrived. Baldy tried to speak with me apologetically at first, but quickly becoming defensive. He was mainly concerned about contacting Jane, but I had no intention of helping him. Frank intervened in our conversation, asking Baldy to come to his office. It was clear that Baldy was facing serious consequences for his actions, both professionally and personally. 12 days after the initial discovery of the affair, I felt ready to face Jane again. Despite the turmoil and pain of the past days, I found some solace and even a sense of humor in the situation, reflecting on the ironic twists of fate that had unfolded. I caught my wife with our gym coach in our bed, and I know when and how it started.